drugs and rock and roll. Because the very, very heavy modes in this country, and I have to say that I'm very, very impressed by you guys who can stay here and preach. Because it's very hard in the West, and in the West, Denmark is a very hard place. You just go to Sweden and you can even feel that it's a little more light. It's a little more passion than Tamagun, but here in Denmark it's very, very Tamagun. And that of course doesn't mean that everybody is a Tamasic person. There are very many nice, well, maybe not so many, but there are nice people. Of course, the Kamis, they're very nice people until you press them on only as soon as you threaten their sense gratification. Then you will see them get angry. But people are very tolerant, that's nice, and the Hare Krishna movement is supported by the government in Denmark, which is not, I think it's the only place in the whole world that this is happening, that the government is actually giving, they give Radio Krishna money every year. So to have a little sect like the Hare Krishna, to get government grant every year, that's a very big thing, and I think that's one of the reasons that Denmark is not already being smashed to smithereens by Mother Nature. Because we also know that Denmark, our economy is based on sinful activities. We have a good economy in Denmark, and what is it based on? It's basically based on the export of meat, milk, butter, meat, dairy products. Beer, yeah. It's a fact. Even in India, I went in a pizzeria one time and they had Carlsberg. Yeah. So we have a very big responsibility, or you have. I'm lucky because I just go back and sit and have an easy life in Mayapur. The only thing which is not easy in Mayapur is the climate, it's so hot. But otherwise it's very easy to be a devotee. Like in Copenhagen, if you go with a bead bag, I once went in the walking street with my bead bag and chanting some rounds walking down the street. And one guy came up, he was almost thinking, what is that? What are you doing with this idiotic thing on your hand? And I was saying, that's my chanting beads, I'm chanting Hare Krishna. Oh. But in Mayapur, if you don't have a bead bag, people will come and say, what's wrong with you? Where's your bead bag? So the whole culture there, the whole atmosphere is geared towards devotion. And here it's just the opposite. It's geared towards non-devotion. So it requires a very big determination to stay and preach in the West and to become a devotee and to practice Krishna consciousness. So just like here, Ritasura is being benefited. We're going to hear about that later. I won't want to reveal the whole thing. But he's going to be benefited by a devotee. And thus, even though he's killed, he's going back. Of course, he was also a devotee before he was, wasn't he? He was a devotee who was cursed.
Chitraketu.
Oh, it's Chitraketu. Oh, he's the one who's telling the story. You remember why he was cursed? Oh, that's right, because he was sitting on Parvati was sitting in the lap of Shiva, and Chitraketu was flying across above, and he was looking down, and he thought that they just looked like some ordinary karmic couple, being engaged in attachment and adoration and sex. And he was laughing. And Parvati, she immediately took offense. And why is he laughing at Lord Shiva, who's a very great personality? So she cursed him to become a demon. Or I think she gave him a choice, didn't she? No. It was Hiranyakashipu, he had a choice. So she cursed them. She cursed Chitraketu to become Ritasura. And And afterwards he was liberated because he was killed by a devotee. Wasn't he killed by a devotee?
Well, then he becomes Vitasura and is killed by him.
Killed by him.
Right. Well, Indra doesn't liberate people by killing them, but he had served his sentence, so to speak, one life as a.
And he's a pure devotee.
Yeah, and he's a pure devotee. So, so we have to also be like that, more or less, like Indra. We, of course, in this modern age, we don't go out and kill the demons. They would do that before. There was one Alva, Nila Alva, I think. He went around, that was some thousands of years ago. He went around and said to people, "Are you going to surrender to Krishna?" "No." Stab. He would get a spear in, he would just kill him on the spot. So, so sometimes we also feel like that. I remember in the beginning I was out with books and I would become so angry when people would say no. You know, one time there was this lady and I always used to say when they wouldn't take a book, "But can you at least give a couple of promos to our welfare work?" And she said, "Yes, I can do that." "Ah, nice, but I don't feel like it." And then she went around and walked down the street. I was there in, what's that called? The one that goes parallel to Kumargade, the little one. Fjordstræde, walking down Fjordstræde. I was screaming at her, "You little sick! Kan du ikke engang hjælpe nogle stakkels narkomaner?" Because in those days we were collecting for drug addicts. We have a farm in Sweden and we help people who are in trouble with drugs and stuff like that, we used to say. Which was not a lie, because we did help people who were in trouble. Of course, there weren't so many junkies who came to our league, but definitely, because everyone is in trouble in the material world. So we were not lying, but we were not telling the whole truth. So, and I couldn't stand when people were like her. I was screaming at them, and then, of course, when you have to run around on the street with a big false ego, then Krishna, he knows just what to do. And he will send you one nasty person after the next who can really agitate your false ego. So one day I remember it was just like, from one day to the next, I decided, oh no, I can't do this. And I decided to surrender and to actually start to see Krishna is in the heart of this person. And try to speak to the super soul instead of speaking to the person's body, but speaking to the person within. And from that day it went so much better. So we have to be very Krishna conscious to do our service. And as we do our service, we become more Krishna conscious. And as we become more Krishna conscious, we become more happy. And as we become more happy, we become more eager to serve Krishna even more. And as we serve Krishna even more, Krishna he makes us more happy, and as we become so happy, we think, wow, I'm so happy serving Krishna, I have to serve Krishna more. And we're trying to serve Krishna more and more. Because it's like it's a completely scientific process. You serve Krishna, you become happy, and it makes sense, because the soul is Sat Chit Ananda. It's eternal, full of bliss and knowledge, Ananda. That's why we see all living entities, they gravitate towards these three things. Everybody wants to become happy, everybody wants to be eternal. Some atheists may say, I don't want to be eternal, but nobody wants to die. That means we want to be eternal. And if we could stay young and enjoy who wants to die, if he's young and enjoying life, you only want to die, you only want to not be eternal if you have a shitty life. But if you have a good life, you want it to go on forever, that's natural. And we always seek knowledge, that's why we send our kids to school, to learn something. And even in the animal species, we see that they gravitate towards the three same properties: eternity, knowledge, and bliss. Everybody wants to be happy, even an animal wants to be happy. And even a cow or a pig, they will feel pleasure and pain like a human being. So, as we chant Hare Krishna, this mantra is like it's like a mystic formula, actually, like abracadabra, that opens up for the soul. And when the soul comes out, the qualities of the soul, Satchidananda, they come out, and we become more knowledgeable, we become more happy, and we become more eternal. That means, of course, we have to die still. We have this material body, and we have to get rid of that. But at the time of death, it won't be like, because usually people, normally people who are not too sinful and not too pious, who are just like people are most, when they die, they will just fall asleep, and then they will wake up 7 months later inside a womb. And inside the womb, they will understand what they did to be in that womb, and it's a hellish condition to be inside a womb. In the modern philosophy, they say, oh, it's so nice to be in the womb. But it's not nice to be in the womb. You're completely crammed together, and your mother is probably eating all kinds of garbage. So it's a very suffering life. It's a very condition of suffering to be in the womb. And then you're squeezed out in a hole which is too small for your head, and you're just born in complete shock and you forget everything. Of course, when you're very, very sinful, then you're picked up by the Yamadutas, and they transport you to the hellish planets where they will torture you for some time. And then after that, you're put into an animal body or something like that. But for a devotee who thinks of Krishna at the time of death, it's not like he dies, because dies means you fall asleep and then everything's gone. That's death, or you're picked up by the. But he's picked up by the Vishnu Dutas. So the consciousness doesn't extinguish or slowly extinguish. So the mind and the mind doesn't extinguish at the point of death for a devotee. He's conscious all the way. So that's why we can say that we don't have to die again. Of course, we have to get rid of this body, but it's not like an ordinary death. For a devotee, it's not an ordinary death, because he's conscious all the time and he knows exactly what is happening. So this is what we are practicing. This glorious process of Krishna consciousness. And just as we can see on our fellow devotees and ourselves that it actually works, the process works. We see people are coming and they're becoming happy by chanting Hare Krishna. So we have to go out and give this gift to everyone. That is the work that we have to do. Because that pleases Prabhupada very much. Prabhupada, he was so eager to give Krishna to the whole world. That's why he went through so much suffering, so much struggle to come to the West. Because in India nobody wanted to hear it. So he thought, if I go to the West and I show the Indians how the Westerners are starting practicing their culture, then they'll be more interested. And that's exactly what happened. When Prabhupada brought his disciples back to India, Krishna consciousness exploded in India. First it exploded in the West, and then it exploded in India. And now Hare Krishna in India is very, very well respected. It's being visited by big, big politicians and dignitaries and artists and actors. All kinds of famous people are coming to the temple and taking darshan. And even the worst atheist in India, he can't help, when he goes past the temple and sees the deities, he can't help doing like this. Even you're a complete atheist, it's still there, it's in their culture that you just can't be an atheist completely. There are some atheists there, but it's not very many. That's in the West. They're very new. Of course, most people they actually, if you take a survey of the whole planet, most people actually believe in God. But from believing in God to knowing God, there's a big step, and that's what we have to offer people, even other religious people. That we actually know. Of course, it's very weird. We know who God is because we know one of God's friends. We know one of God's friends, and that's a big thing, and we should be very happy that we do that, not only for ourselves but for everyone else. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Okay, so do you have a question?
Yeah, now you have talked about the difference between the cultures, and I was just wondering that Lord Chaitanya, he left Navadvip in order to preach in South India because it was more favorable there.
Yeah.
And I actually thought today that I'm so full of thought and so limited and like that. And so in all these years, there's very few Mahajatis who really take up Krishna consciousness here. And of course, I know it's also especially my own fault, but to get purified oneself and to be in a more conducive atmosphere, because when I visited India some months ago, it was so easy to preach. So sometimes I get this, one can get this desire, like you also went there. So is this, one is also afraid that it's a sense gratification.
No, it's never sense gratification to preach about Krishna. It's like we may think, take nice prasadam, definitely it's sense gratification, but it's not. Because everything in connection, even sense gratification in connection with Krishna is spiritual and becomes purified. So, in the beginning, when we have all these anarthas in the heart and all our material conditions, Krishna will use those. Like I like to be in opposition. I don't like to have people agreeing with me. I think it's boring. So Krishna, he's allowed me to preach on the internet, preaching to atheists. I love that. Even though my friends, they say, so how many atheists did you convert today? And so far nobody, of course, is converted, because you can't convert an atheist. And I always say, but my purpose in being there is not to convert the atheists, it's just to kick atheist ass, because I like them. And because they're so stupid, they need somebody to just hammer on their head. So Krishna uses our contaminations and our false ego. He uses that to preach. That's see how expert Prabhupada was when he came and he engaged people. Sometimes one devotee came and asked Prabhupada, why do you let this man be the TP, the temple president? He's so nasty, he doesn't treat the devotees nicely, and he doesn't know what he's doing. How come you do that, Prabhupada? And you know what Prabhupada said? He said, because he wants it the most. So Prabhupada, he looked at his disciples and he said, so what they really wanted, if somebody wants position and power, yes, go and be a temple president. Because he saw the big picture. The small picture is that some people will get their false egos bashed by the temple president. That's like the first thing you discover when you join the Hare Krishnas. Somebody's going to come and poke at your false ego. Because that's purifying. So Prabhupada, he would take these contaminations and material conditions and he would use them in Krishna service. And he would love his disciples when he saw how they were becoming purified and preaching. But in the beginning, they were not pure. They had all these. And another thing is that I was thinking, because sometimes you think Americans, because I preach to them online, the most rabid, brain-dead, idiotic people on the planet are definitely Americans. So I was wondering, why is this? But of course, it's number one empire in the world, and Prabhupada knew that. And he knew that nobody but the Americans could have this gung-ho mentality, boo-ha, to go out and spread Krishna consciousness all over the world in like 8-10 years. Nobody but the Americans could have done that. Imagine Prabhupada had gone to Denmark. Prabhupada, when are we going to eat? Or Germany, or even England. No, doesn't work. Only the Americans could have that enthusiasm for power and position to go out. We are the best, yeah. Surrender. So when you connect that with Krishna, you get this flourishing movement. It was started by the Americans. And we should not forget that. Personally, I hate Americans. They're stupid. But they actually, and the only thing that actually good that came out of America is the Hare Krishna movement. And they were the only ones who could start so fast. In a few years, it went all over the world. Prabhupada would tell one of his disciples, hey, you go to Indonesia, you go to Germany, you go there, and they would go enthusiastically, and the movement would grow. It's completely mystical if you think about it. One person, Prabhupada, goes to America, and from there, Krishna consciousness explodes all over the world. It's actually mystic. There's no material logic behind it. So you should not be despondent that not so many women are joining. They'll come. You just have to, what can you do? You can preach and pray. So you pray for them. Pray to Krishna that they may come. Of course, it's not easy for a brahmacharini. She comes to the temple. What's she going to do? Where is she going to stay? It's not easy for her to join. It's easier for a brahmachari. So we have to marry the brahmacharis. Gauritai, did you have a question?
Come and take it over for something.
What?
Normally you have to finish quarter two.
Oh, sorry. Jai, so we'll end here. All glory to Srimad Bhagavatam, all glory to Sri Guru.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.